Call us to order. At 5:32, the City Council Transportation, Energy and Utility
Recording in progress.
meeting. First item on our agenda is the agenda. Could I have a motion on the agenda?
I move the agenda as posted.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Second, on our agenda is adoption of the minutes from our September 30th meeting.
So I really like the AI, at least it's better than the, what we were doing before, so I appreciate it. There are errors in them. I don't want to move the approval of them. I want them fixed. They seem to be, I could figure it out, but I think for the public, there's paragraphs that are broken up, and I don't know if anybody else has read them, but there's some goofiness. I'm suggesting that we delay to the next meeting.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion. Thank you very much.
Second guy. Is there a second on that motion? Seeing a second. Mr. Broderick, discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. So we'll delay those minutes and have them back in our next meeting. Next on our agenda is public forum. And I will first turn to speakers in the room who have signed up here, and then I'll turn to the speakers online. If you're interested in speaking public forum and you're online, please indicate by using the raise hand function. And we'll call on you when we get to you. First speaker is Kelton Bagaski.
Right here.
Yeah.
Can I speak right here?
Sure.
Kelvin.
Go ahead, just take your name for the record.
Yep, Kelvin Bogaski, represented with Casella. I know you guys are talking about the recycling. So we just wanted to come in and, reiterate a conversation that we, have with Lee and Chapin, but, we're excited about the opportunity to potentially work with the city. I think when, we heard the city council meeting just talking about, a few of the concerns we had with the initial bid that you guys are talking about tonight was just the 7-year versus 5-year. We talked a little bit about, and the start date, and those were two of our concerns that we had brought up to the city. It's when we look at the start date of 1 year out, so January or less than a year out, so it's January 1st was a start date. We had to add a lot of truck rental capital in there for a year, so we wouldn't have been able to buy our trucks, labor and training. So being able to get our staff up to speed in a matter of 3 months was really, that was a really tight timeline for us to do that. So we had asked, for a push out to be able to have time to get our staff through a CDL training school so we could be fully staffed to serve the city if we were to win the bid, as well as the 7 versus 5 years. So capital cost of the trucks, being able to put that over a longer time period. The types of trucks that we would use for the city would be a manual side load, not an automatic side load. So it wouldn't fit in our fleet plan with our other trucks where we use a lot of automated side loads. So I think just, when we're looking at, okay, at the end of the 5 years, wherever that contract lands, we'd still have 3 trucks that wouldn't be fully, paid off. And then, just the cost of learning the routes. It's a big, it's a big city. There's a lot of routes, a lot of roads to learn. And, it's a lot of that, onboarding where we'd be running, okay, well, maybe we're running a chase truck to pick up stops. So I think we wanted to just, put that out in the, in the comments before you guys were talking about it. I think we tried to get as competitive as we could with our 5-year. I know we definitely are interested, if you guys do put out a 7-year and bidding that. I know we had submitted and we would, submitted as well. And, we still tried to stay under, I know, the city waste tax right now is $12.10 a unit. And with our 5-year agreement, we ended up at $9.97 a unit with the $1.41 that you guys pay for disposal. So a total of $11.38. So we had tried to be competitive with all those costs. And then the other piece that just, talking about was you guys had talked about flow control as well. And, I think it's just worth noting, the reason some people end up going with a private hauler is around backdoor service. So service that the city, doesn't provide. So, they don't want to take the fine of leaving their carts on the green belt. So they end up wanting to pay for that service to have their carts brought back. to the behind there, and then the other piece I think is, I think there's two other pieces, extras outside of totes. So I think there's some places that might have more material. The city does not in their ordinances pick up anything outside toters. We have the policy, we will clean up. We try to get the right number of toters to the customers. But if they had a big Amazon order or something like that, depending, we will clean up, make sure we take that recycling in our truck. And then I think the other piece is just looking at some of the larger properties, when they look at the number of toters that they would need. It would be 20, 30 toters, and they'd rather just go with a dumpster. It might be more efficient, might make more sense for their operation, so going with the number of toters. So I think it's just, looking at the flow control, I think, considering those for the people, we do not go out, look for these customers, people reaching out saying, hey, could you do backdoor service for us? Or, hey, we're struggling, we're spending time in our HOA picking up, sending a truck ourselves, paying labor ourselves to pick up extras and putting them in a shared dumpster every week. It might make more sense if you guys are able to run around and pick that up. So, yeah, thank you. I mean, again, we're looking for an opportunity to potentially work with the city.
Thank you. Next we have Jeff Comstock.
Evening, I'm Jeff Comstock, live in Ward 7 here in Burlington. I wanted to introduce, the reason I came this evening is to introduce you to a new neighborhood work group that we're trying to put together. It's the Plattsburg Avenue Neighborhood Traffic Safety Work Group. And the concept here is that what happens on Plattsburg Avenue impacts far beyond the people who actually live on Plattsburg Avenue, because you're looking at turf, clover, barley, St. Francis, that Oak Circle development. You've got River's Edge condominiums on Plattsburg Avenue, and you've got the whole Malay complex. You've got Sunset, Meridian, Venus, Sky. All of those neighborhoods are impacted by what happens on Plattsburg Avenue. So we recently organized a neighborhood meeting and hosted it at our house, and we had a modest turnout. We had more people responded as being interested than were actually able to show up for that evening. And so my primary objective is to share with you our meeting notes and discussion from that evening, because we covered a lot more than what we can hear today. So if you need an additional copy,
If you want to submit an electronic copy, it'd be helpful. We can post them to the meeting.
Yep, I'll do that. So, yep, when I get home, I'll do that. So. So for additional context, I guess I would add that our house is the house on Plattsburg Avenue across from the cemetery, where somebody decided to park their car in our basement window. So back in March, our house got crashed into by the result of an accident that occurred on Plattsburg Avenue. So yeah, we got skin in the game, if you want to put it that way. So just quickly, I guess I would like to cover a couple of really highlights from the meeting. There's a lot more in here that I won't go into this evening.
Just because we will be taking this up as well. So if you want to hit some high points, and I'd be happy to have you participate in the discussion.
Okay, because I will stay. Okay,
so
the first one is we had an interesting conversation about enforcement and the lack of traffic safety enforcement, particularly on Plattsburg Avenue and Route 127. And everybody, all our neighbors who participated in the meeting admitted openly that when they drive across the Heineberg Bridge into Colchester, they slow down. Because Colchester periodically has an officer sitting on the pullout on the other side of the bridge. And so I just think that recognizing that periodic enforcement presence really is an effective deterrent. So, and I just am also wondering if, given the new safety plan that the city of Burlington is putting together in conjunction with state resources, if we get outside additional law enforcement resources, if some of that could actually be deployed as traffic safety throughout the city. You know, we're particularly concerned with what goes on at our end of town, but I know that other folks around the rest of the city have traffic safety behavior concerns, and I think that additional law enforcement presence would be effective elsewhere. And let's see. I guess I'm gonna leave it at that for now. There's in the meeting notes, the folks came up with a pretty good list of practical suggestions for various traffic safety response practices, and so we can definitely talk about those later. And I think.
Yeah. Next is Jason Bench.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Van Drysch, I live in Ward 5, and I sent y'all an email last night. What I'm here to talk about is Pearl Street. A little bit of background. I saw some signs out on the street several weeks ago indicating that Pearl Street was going to be repaved. Reached out to Rob and learned that it was getting was a victim of the asphalt plant shutting down, and it was going to be moved to next year, which I think is actually a great thing because Pearl Street in the city's walk bike master plan is supposed to have bike lanes on both sides. And when a street is repaved, even just a thin repaving, what's it called, a shim? Mill and fill is perfect time to do that because the street is being restriped anyway, so converting to the intended configuration is a zero cost proposition. I asked Rob if the plan was to add bike lanes to both sides, and he said no. And I then connected with Philip to get more detail, and Philip said that, and tell me if I get this wrong, Philip, that the city would not be implementing protected bike lanes next year because that would require some curb work and other things beyond just striping. And as best I can tell, that is a case of the perfect being the enemy of the good, because unless I'm missing something, there is no reason, no physical impediment to the street being converted next year to buffered bike lanes on both sides. There's no curb bump outs, there's no turn lanes in Upper Pearl Street. The only impediment obviously is removal of parking. So I wanted first just to verify that that's true, because I had asked Philip that question, but it was very last minute, and I know there's a lot of prep for these meetings, so I hadn't heard back yet. Is it in fact true that that there's no physical impediment, it's only a policy change of removing parking that would enable bike lanes to be on both sides of that street?
It's public forum.
Okay. I'm hoping for a little bit of clarification, because given the lateness of my email yesterday, Philip didn't have a chance to respond. And the key question is there any physical impediment to converting the street from bike lane on one side, parking on the other, to bike lanes on both sides? when it's repaved next year.
Okay, well, thank you,
And assuming that the answer to that question is no, I rode the street yesterday and I can't see any reason why there's an impediment other than the policy change with moving parking. I have to assume that the reason why it's not on DPW's docket for next year is because removing parking is a political lift. So what I am here to do is to ask the TEUC to begin a process of a resolution to direct DPW, a city council resolution to direct DPW to implement buffered bike lanes on both sides of the street next year as meaningful safety improvement and step towards what is called for in the walk bike master plan of protected bike lanes on both sides. And the reason why I'm asking the TEUC to do that is because it seems unfair to me to basically put the political lift on DPW every time parking needs to be removed, because it's a real lift. And I think we need to shift to a pattern of the city council basically giving DPW a directive to implement these kinds of politically difficult projects so that the fallout is at the policy level rather than on DPW. So that's my ask. I'm gonna be connecting with each of the councilors afterwards. And I'd like to see a resolution come back to this committee in the next couple of meetings, moving in that direction.
thank you, Jason. Next we have Jack Evans, yeah.
Jack Evans for the AI. I wanted to come in and thank both DPW and some of the volunteers who are here for supporting the North Ave protected bike lane pop-up demonstration project that took place this past week. The project was contentious, even to the point of showing why we need protected bike infrastructure in many parts of the city. I mean, there was one incident where one of the volunteers who helped maintain the cones caught a vehicle plowing through it like 40-50 miles an hour just through the bike lane. As people were walking home from the NPA meeting that we were democratically and respectfully discussing the project at, causing these 18-pound bases to fly up onto the sidewalk into oncoming traffic and would have hit any one of the people walking home that night. Despite the aggression that we saw, we also received clear support for protected bike infrastructure from the people it was designed to protect, the people who already ride and the people who would ride for their protected infrastructure. And this was from people present in the New North End and people just across the city, people who were asking why it's not happening in their neighborhood and what it would take to see more of it happen quicker. Children, older adults, people going to work, school, grocery stores, people who care about climate, community, and safety. The Walk Bike Council, the Burlington Walk Bike Council, will be discussing the findings from the survey, some of our data, some of the conversations we've had surrounding this at the meeting next Wednesday, November 5th. We'll prepare likely a formal report for this committee and also for DPW. And I also just wanted to echo support for pursuing complete streets upgrades when feasible, even interim, especially interim as part of repaving on Pearl Street and really any street, especially as DPW is beginning to prepare their paving plan for the next year. And with a focus, I would say, on network and connectivity. We have new great infrastructure on North Champlain, and it's a shame to see it kind of be this hanging feature in our network. That is all. Thank you.
We also have Jack Tiano.
Hello, my name is Jack Ciano. I live in Ward 5. I guess the reason that I came today was I've been passively following along with the recycling conversation over the course of the year. And I read the memo that went to the city council, either, I guess, last week or so. And then I read through the documentation today, and that goes for this meeting. And I guess my main feeling about it, and then it brought up other thoughts that also tie into, I was one of the volunteers on the project on the bike lane pilot. I've been really involved on a lot of the infrastructure side conversations in the city over the past couple of years. Worked a lot with other advocates and have spent a lot of time in this room for a number of different types of regular meetings. And so for the recycling, reading through the initial kind of the bids that came back and where we ended up, it seems to me like the goal for that was to, I remember, right, like came to this meeting earlier this year and I said, I don't like this or whatever, and then I told you I changed my mind by the end of that meeting. And I feel like, having looked at where we're at now, it seems like the initial cost savings is not really as big as we thought it would be. I think that there's room to see if that changes with a longer bid and another bid cycle. But then we're starting to get out, and I'm sure some of this same discussion to have in the city council meeting. 7 years feels like a long time to be offloading. This feels like an interim project. I also, acknowledge how difficult it is to manage these things, a lot of the different projects that are going on, all responsibilities that DPW is trying to manage. And so main thing kind of that this connected to with all these things is I don't feel like we are giving DPW the chance to succeed as a city. I feel that what I've seen is that DPW is given responsibility to do so many things with such limited resources, and that it's a miracle that things are moving as they are. But that it's a constant. I know this is a conversation across the city, in every department, but from my perspective at least, and maybe I'm not, lonely on this perspective. The Department of Public Works is kind of like good sleep and healthy diet and exercise. Like without it, like none of the other stuff we're trying to do as a city matters. If we're not thinking about how the infrastructure of the city is going to be growing and maintaining, all of the housing targets that we have are not going to be feasible. The economic growth that the city needs is not going to be feasible. And I think that there needs to be, I'm speaking mostly to the committee here. I think that there needs to be more political attention given to how foundational the work of the Public Works Department is. And even in challenging budgeting years and in challenging environments, thinking about how we can invest more in the department and give them the capacity to do what they need to do. I don't think that we're seeing good outcomes coming from, right, like the walk, like Jason kind of trying to point out these opportunities to make progress on the walk bike plan. That's something that would have dramatic impacts on mobility access and economic development and safety in our communities. And it is a project that has largely lagged for a decade, mostly due to lack of capacity to implement. And I think that needs to be more political will given to the department by our political elected leaders, from the city council and the mayor's office and everyone who kind of has to deal with the political side of making changes to infrastructure. I've had so many conversations over the past year, as this has become an increasingly top priority for me around transportation systems. There's just not a lot of attention given to it at the magnitude that I feel like it deserves. And I feel like it puts me as an advocate into contention with city staff pretty frequently, and I don't like being in that position. And I feel like I'm at the point now where I think that, it's on you guys to run with this and to build that political will, to give them permission to do the work that, we have as a city kind of said that they should do, but then we don't like actually let them do it. And so this was kind of just a moment where we were recycling, which is kind of separate from bike lanes or whatever, but it's all related. Even just this morning, seeing the recycling bins in the bike lane on South Winooski, how we integrate our systems And I'm still a proponent for, I think that that long term, we need to have the recycling and, municipal waste collection be consolidated under the city. Because the city is a living complex system, and we need to be able to have coordinated approaches to how we manage our infrastructure. So whether the next couple of years turn out, however they turn out, in whatever way it needs to be, is one thing, but I feel like this needs to be the first place where we start reinvesting in the foundational infrastructure of the city, and it starts with giving DPW the resources and permission to do so. That's my
Thanks, Jack. Is there anybody else who came your way who'd like to speak at public forum? If not, I'll turn to our online speakers, and I see Sharon Busher, former Councilor Sharon Busher, has her hand raised. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yes, hi, thank you. I want to speak to two of your items. The first one, there's no attachment to the agenda item, but I did hear the presentation at the DPW Commission. It's the 150-foot setback of parking from a number of streets that I believe currently don't have sidewalks on either side, and probably will never, because of some of the age of the street and the age of the city. But my concern regarding that proposal, well, there are a couple of things. One is that there was a discussion that something like this could be handled by the, there's a motion to allow the department to take action that the commission allows it to do without actually, and so there will be an elimination in some scenarios where the public won't have a chance to speak to the commission regarding a proposal. I think you've heard some comments about parking already. I think the removal of parking is a hot topic, and I think that I would hope that everyone would understand that that really needs to be, there needs to be a way for the people that actually live on the street to be able to have some input. That's number one. The rationale for doing this is safety. I understand that. Apparently, staff went to a meeting where this proposal is done elsewhere, and probably I can't speak to how many communities or cities have adopted this safety measure, and I understand it. I get it, but I'm not sure about the interface of the street with the road and that intersection. Is it an arterial, or what's that intersection, and what's the speed on those roads regarding the distance, the 150-foot necessity for? So I don't have any of that information, and I would like the TEUC committee to at least understand, are there guidelines regarding those intersections based on the type of street that it dumps into? I can only speak, and I wanted to speak to, there were three streets that I'm familiar with: Latham Court, Pomeroy, and Mill Street. Those are all in Ward 1. Latham Court, my yard abuts two properties on Latham Court. It's a little dead-end street. It's very short, has no sidewalks, barely has a street. The complexity of these things have to balance safety and what we've done. We've eliminated parking on Colchester Avenue in certain areas. We've reduced parking in other areas. And so we have some small businesses. We have a flower shop. We have the Indian style restaurant whose name I can't remember. But parking on the side street now becomes more important to the survival of those businesses. That's number one. On Latham, that's a factor. On Mill Street, once again, there's a little hub of businesses down there, And I'm not quite sure, once again, I thought that intersection was going to be modified with the bridge and so I'm trying to understand the necessity for this and how many spaces would be lost. And I believe that little community really needs to have some input on this. Once again, what's it going to be dumping into? What's the speed? There's going to be a lot of stop and start scenarios there. So I'm asking that. Pomeroy, the last one, is a street where it's a parking lot, and that was intentional. They removed parking on Archibald and people and on, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. Anyways, another little a street. And so more vehicles are parking on Pomeroy. Now, Pomeroy dumping into Willard, I agree. I would like a better distance for to be able to see cars as because I go down Pomeroy. So anyways, I agree with that, but where are the cars that we've once displaced now to Pomeroy going to go? I think that my point around all of this is that although on the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward, but I'm trying to give you an idea of each one having a little bit of complexity. And I want the city to appreciate the fact we're an older city. We have to balance safety. We have to hopefully support local businesses. And we have to understand what we've already done to people. And now, if we're going to eliminate those parking spaces, where are those cars going to go? So that's really what I'm here to point out to the TEUC committee. Because I think if I were one of you and heard this presentation, it seems, yep, it's straightforward. But I say probably the other streets also have stories. Maybe some of them are straightforward. That's number one. Number two is the recycling, and I am glad to see that the department is going to go back out for the RFP or whatever it is, the RFQ, with a 7-year proposal, because I didn't feel it was fair to just allow a very innovative customer to come forward and point out why 7 years was the more viable than a shorter term. So I appreciate that and I understand that and I don't dispute it. My concern is that I just want I want everyone's eyes to be open. In 7 years, I think the likelihood of it coming back to the city would be slim to nil. And the second piece is that once you've got someone selected to do recycling, if we contract it out, I think that entity has a leg up against anyone else who wants to do the consolidated proposal if we don't do it ourselves. And I don't think we will do it ourselves if we go 7 years with recycling. So my concern is that if that is what's going to happen, I just want everyone to realize that's what we're setting in place. That's what is going to happen. And I feel that to be upfront with the community is only fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I see Counselor Litwin on. Are you here to speak in public forum, Evan, or are you here to speak on one of the items when we take it up later?
Well, I have to think, can you hear me okay?
You can, yes.
Okay, I can't stay for the whole meeting, so I won't be able to join for the item, but I did just want to make a quick comment during public comment, if that's all right.
Yes, it is. Go ahead.
Thanks a lot. First and foremost, I would just like to really thank and echo what former Councilor Busher just said. I think she really just nailed a lot of that on the head, and I would just, I guess, echo her comments, particularly for some of those streets that she mentioned, but there are many others around the city. And so actually I'm here tonight really with regards to Plattsburg Avenue. when I was elected to the council and took my seat in April of 2024, I think the very first constituent contact I had, I ended up going to a home, was that of a car that was not the one that Jeff Constock just mentioned, but was rather one that, again, on the same side of the road, flew off the side of the road, launched into the air, landed in a woman's yard who has a small toddler. They had just been outside, minutes before, knocked down the power line and knocked out power to the neighborhood. That is another extreme example. I've had to visit the Comstock's house after a car launched into their house. I have been up there door knocking on numerous occasions, and what I hear over and over and over is frustration around speeding. Director Spencer knows. I forward him some of the emails I get from time to time, everything from accidents we sometimes can chase down the info of and accidents we sometimes can't chase down the info of, all of which tend to sound pretty serious. And so ultimately, I'm just really pleased that this neighborhood group came together, but oftentimes I'm struck that neighborhood groups even have to form over things like this. And that's really when I think we have to say, okay, we need to reprioritize this. And one of the things that Director Spencer has said to me is essentially that there are over 60 streets in queue that need money for traffic calming. And, you're sort of able to throw in traffic calming measures if you have a paving project like what happened on Ethan Allen Parkway this past summer. But short of that, it's sort of a get in line situation. And they have money for about one street per year. Well, we just cannot wait for half a century for Plattsburg Avenue to get its kind of day. It's a dangerous um, uh, travel corridor at this point, and so I would just and actually to the enforcement piece, which was brought up, it's like, gosh, that's one of the things I hear the most from folks in the New North End is just, please help us with speeding on X Street or Y Street or Z Street. And I know that's happening all over the city. So, and I'm sympathetic with DPW particularly and Director Spencer because, when we lost 30, 40 officers over the past 3 or 4 years, suddenly we didn't have the ability to enforce. And so everybody looked to DPW to create engineering solutions, which are expensive and take time. And then, you start doing them. And what happened this summer? We got a bunch of angry emails about the bump out at Ethan Allen on Ethan Allen Parkway. So it's a delicate dance. And, I do recognize the situation that DPW is in as a result of us being severely understaffed. I had a ride along with BPD on Saturday night for 4 hours. There were 4 or 5 police officers on duty patrolling the whole city, and that is a Saturday night. And that's on a good night. Some nights they didn't even have that many. We were busy the entire time. So I also understand that when, I think I got 23 emails about the motorcycle racing that was going on this past summer, all up and down Plattsburg Avenue, and then using the belt line in North Avenue to kind of as a racetrack essentially. And BPD just did not have the capacity to do enforcement. We have one officer doing enforcement on overtime for the whole city. And that's just not sustainable for any human being. So I know you're going to have a more in-depth conversation. I'll leave that to all the great minds in the room, including Mr. Comstock and anyone else who's from the Plattsburg Avenue neighborhood. But I would urge this committee and the DPW commission to say, okay, we recognize this road is particularly speedy. It's especially a problem with people coming from Colchester at high speed and then basically using Plattsburg Avenue as a gentle off-ramp. And that tends to be where they're launching their vehicles, where they get this big straightaway at the green light at Sunset Drive. And so I have two asks for those with more expertise than I to consider. Jeff might go over some of those things because I know there were a bunch of ideas that got shared in that meeting, but two that came up for me were one was I was driving by George Street the other day, and it is a wide one-way street, and I noticed that there were some cement like flower pots now out there so that people don't either inadvertently or on purpose take a right turn there. And I thought we could do that similar to what we did with the right turn sort of on-ramp down by the North Avenue Alliance Church and sort of reclaim that piece of road for the community. It could be a walking area, whatever, car parking, whatever it needs to be, but it wouldn't be sort of a racetrack on-ramp from Colchester Ave connecting to North Ave. Or sorry, from Colchester connecting to North Ave. The second thing is the Sunset Drive light. I think that's another like low cost, low hanging fruit, easy fix where we could change the timing of the light so that it defaults to red as cars are approaching, so that they have to slow down as they enter this neighborhood and they have to stop, so that folks coming off of Sunset Drive sort of always have a green. And those are just two kind of small things I think we can do. But ultimately, I will leave you with this. This neighborhood, particularly, which I do not live near, but I empathize with, is frightened. Just like many of the bikers who have come and spoken tonight and about North Avenue, people are frightened of walking, and their cars are hit and sideswiped. They're screamed at when they're pulling in and out of their driveways because people are just consistently speeding. And in fact, I want to thank Director Spencer, because one of the first things he did for me when we first met was putting speed radar sensors out there, which I think, have a marginal effect. But we do need to do something there. I'm not sure what it needs to be, but it can't be waiting for another car to fly off and potentially kill someone. Luckily, the Comstocks were not in their home at the time, but I fear that at some point I'm going to be responding to constituents in a much more serious situation, including what happened on the Beltline where someone was struck head on who was a New North End resident at 120 miles an hour is what the black box read at the point of impact. So we have a speeding problem on the Beltline, and it carries over onto Plattsburg Ave. Thank you.
We're gonna take this up, Evan, shortly. It's one of the first things on our agenda.
Yep,
So.
I'm all done. That was the end of my comments.
Thank you so much. We have two more speakers. I'm gonna just time check us. We're at 6:15. I was hoping that public comment would end around 6:10, so we're a little bit over, but we have two more speakers, and I'm gonna cue them up to talk. Pike Porter's first. Go ahead, Pike.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I just wanted to advise two commission members that I about 20 minutes ago sent you links to two articles about that recognize some of the reasons we should have, not just Burlington, but most cities, all cities should have real bike infrastructure, permanent bike lanes, protected bike lanes, separate bike lanes, etc. So those are in your email inbox. I'd also like to, I hope that at some point in time, some of the presentation material that was not attached to the agenda tonight will get circulated so that we can see some of that. And then finally, some of the comments by Casella raised some questions for me that I didn't have before. It sounded like, some of the, if recycling is moving towards privatization, excuse the the garbling there, I'd have to understand why we would need a whole bunch of new totes and new trucks and new equipment I just don't understand what's wrong with the current equipment or why whoever does it, the city or a private company, couldn't use the existing infrastructure we already have. It seems like a huge waste having these fairly recent toters and not being able to use them if we do go private. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And our last speaker is Jason Stuffle. Go ahead, Jason.
All right, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thanks. Jason Stuffle, and I live on Colchester Ave, and I'm also part of the Burlington Walk Bike Council. I really came just to speak to one item, but based on some comments, I'm just make quick comments on two things. The first was just I was biking this summer out at Plattsburg Ave area at sunset, and I had come upon a very, very recent crash. A person on a motorcycle had crashed. The motorcycle was well off the road up into a tree. The person was pretty severely injured. There were a lot of neighbors and people in the neighborhood who were out there helping the individual. There were soon after, it was ambulances, fire trucks, police officers showing up to handle the situation. And so it puts a lot of strain just on local resources. Very concerning for people to live around there to have that sort of thing occur on such a basis. I didn't know about these other ones into houses and things like that. But the main issue is 127 is high speed, and there's a slip lane that comes off there. And the only purpose for slip lanes is to have cars go fast. They're bad for people walking, biking, people who live near them. So getting rid of that slip lane there and putting some other configuration in there, I think will go a long way into improving the situation there, but also some other physical barriers or alterations are needed. It was mentioned enforcement on the Colchester side. That'll work for people who know that they're there, but people who are new to the situation, which you're going to get a lot of times coming through there, aren't going to be aware about whether there's enforcement or not. So you really need something that physically slows people down. They'll drive as fast as feels safe to them. So that's my first item. And then the second one, I thank Jason Van Dries for bringing up the Pearl Street parking removal. So many of our walk bike issues are contingent on, can we remove parking? Even a single parking spot is so much of an issue. And I can tell you from experience, I was involved with removing the parking on Colchester Ave. And, there's a lot of doomsday scenarios. It's the end of the world. Everything's going to be, nowhere for people to park. People change their habits. People actually parked in their driveways instead of parking in the road. People are, to this day where I go out there, people have no idea that it used to be there anymore unless you have a long-term memory, and it works great. And so for me living on Colchester Ave by the hospital, I have no way to get downtown in a bike lane, not Main Street, not College Street, not Pearl Street. I usually take the Old North End wiggle. And then even when I take that, I'm trying to get off of Grant Street headed east to get on the North Union. And there's a car there that, blocks the view for you to get out of there. And I put in multiple C-Click Fix other items to try and get that removed, but it meets, quote unquote standards for setbacks. So I'd love to see the TEUC and City Council somehow make it easier to manage parking where, public safety is concerned. Another good example is trying to get out of the YMCA. I don't know if you ever tried to drive out of the YMCA, you can't see. And when I bike down College Street, people don't see me when they're pulling out. And so, again, I put in C-Click Fix to remove 1-2 parking spots there just to daylight it so you can see, and nothing happens there. So just encourage you to help make managing parking better. Not having a place to store automobiles is not the end of the world. It's actually the opposite, that when we encourage people to have less automobiles or make it safer, there's not a need to have so many cars around. So, and looking forward to Rick Sharp's presentation, which I assume is on a bike share, which I sorely missed. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Jason was our last speaker this evening. So I'll go ahead and close public forum and turn to our deliberative agenda, and the first item on our deliberative agenda is Plattsburg Ave and Route 127 traffic safety. Thank you. Are you leading that thought?
Yes, I am. Jim, will you say anything before I get into this?
I think I will just say that we know this has been of interest to some counselors, and we have some data to share with the council tonight. We have taken some steps, and I appreciate Councilor Litwin's kind of understanding of our traffic calming program. The one nuance I would say is that we do prioritize that list based on crash and speed history. So it's not a first in, first out program anymore, which it used to be. With that, turn it over to staff.
Great. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks city councilors for letting me speak tonight. I'm Philip Peterson, Senior Transportation Engineer and Planner with Public Works, and I'm going to try and fly through this presentation pretty quickly. Or we like city engineer made it clear to me she kind of wants this to be a bit of a listening session as well as sharing data. So we'll just get right into it. I think we understand the purpose. We're going to discuss any crash trends and safety conditions on both Plattsburg Ave and the Beltline. We kind of understand both of these streets are connectors, the main connectors to the new north end. There's very few ways to get in and out of the new north end, and these are two main ways of doing that, large commuter routes. So just to kind of get into Plattsburg Ave, the particulars, this obviously be posted later and folks can read this at their leisure. So to just get into some speed data and locations where we collected speed data. In general, there is a speeding condition on Plattsburg. I would say it's not a demonstrable one given the speed limit of the street. We collected speed data on Plattsburg this past year and found the 85th percentile speed to be 33 miles per hour. Those who don't know what we mean when we say 85th percentile speed, that means 85% of vehicles on the street are going 33 miles per hour or less. So we don't use the average. The average would be a lower speed. We also collected speed data near North Avenue to kind of get an idea on our project, the North Ave Plattsburg right-hand turn removal, to see if we've had some success. So that would be an example of success, removing the right-hand turn lane from North Ave onto Plattsburg, which connects the bike network. Data shows a localized reduction in speed, which is what we were hoping for. That was one of the results that we were looking for. As a new North End resident, I can speak to my own lived condition. Councilor Burrow asked me if I wanted to speak during public forum. I have a lot of thoughts and opinions, and I can just say that as a lived condition, I walk my dog to the dog park quite a bit. This intersection feels much safer than it used to. People can't just go super fast around that corner and accelerate into Plattsburg the way that they used to. Some folks still do, but data is showing that 85% of vehicles are going not only slower, but slower than the speed limit on Plattsburg, which is 30 miles an hour. We do have some crash data and some trends around crash data. We also worked with the police department to get what the motor vehicle complaints look like too. Those are non-crash situations. Those are just complaints. So from 2012 to 2025, we have 206 recorded incidents. Most of those are motor vehicle complaints, and then the rest are different kinds of crashes. We do have a bit of our own analysis around these crashes on Plattsburg, but again, Laura Wheelock and myself wanted to make this a bit of a listening session. So let's get into the Beltline, the particulars around the Beltline. What we found is the 85th percentile speed on the Beltline is 56 miles per hour, which is actually less than what I thought it was going to be. But we collected data on a couple of occasions, and that's generally what we found it to be. The amount of crashes on the Beltline is higher, which makes sense. It's a higher volume road. It sees a lot more traffic than Plattsburg Ave. There have been 3 fatalities from 2012 to 2025 that have been recorded. I did a little bit more of a deep dive into where these accidents are occurring on the Beltline, and in general, a third are happening at each one of the interchanges, and then kind of lower percentage amount of crashes are occurring either isolated at mid-segment locations or on the exit on the Heinberg Bridge area. So, you know, it's kind of, it makes sense. It tracks if we kind of look at some key takeaways. Most crashes occur at these interchanges, these merge, diverge points, these sections, especially at the North Ave interchange where you get going onto North Beach, you have multiple lanes, multiple opportunities to have those type of incidents and crashes. This is not a list of different safety strategies that I would recommend. It was more or less my spaghetti against the wall moment where I was like, what are all the things that FHWA would recommend that one could do on a limited access highway? And really what kind of came out, bottom line, the belt line is not necessarily a high crash corridor, but it would meet the FHWA and VTrans criteria for a potential safety concern with the crash clustering near interchanges. And that is the kind of location where we would recommend requesting a road safety audit through the CCRPC and UPWP. A couple of different reasons where that is a good idea. One being you can get a better analysis on what is actually happening, the crashes that are occurring. You know, this is just my like 10,000 foot view, just looking at data. And then by doing that kind of study, you can leverage it to apply for grant funding. HSIP, which is the Highway Safety Improvement Program, still exists in the federal program. And so those are funds that we could pursue if we went that route, which I think we will. Now, I'm going to do that quickly. I'm going to give folks an opportunity to ask questions.
I want to do one quick ad. Public forum comments about enforcement. I'm going to have Philip add into his presentation just so the information is out there. Chief Burke spoke at the Ward 1 NPA in September, and our 1 hour and 45 minutes is where his comments come in. He speaks to a lot of the challenges that the police department currently has with being able to do speed enforcement. As Council Litwin mentioned, this isn't the only ward and only area of the city that has concerns over the lack of enforcement and kind of the safety that comes from that. It was a really great, straightforward, honest conversation. I found new information in what he shared. So we'll make sure that we have a link to where that is.
I didn't have any questions. Thanks. I'll open it up for questions from there.
No questions. Thank you. I think it seems like doing the work you've done is the best approach to this. So thank you for bringing it to us.
Well, I have questions about, and I don't know if Councilor McKnight is with us. She has joined. She has joined. Do you have questions, Councilor McKnight?
I do. Yes. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So let's see. Two questions. One quick question for Philip. When you were looking at the speed data, and I'm particularly curious for this about Plattsburg Ave, because I know I worked with you all on some traffic data for South Willard, and it was the radar screen data collection for speed, and it was only in one direction. So I was just curious if the report you shared for Plattsburg Ave was in both directions or just one direction collecting speed.
That's in both directions. And
Okay.
And with the black hat.
Yeah, and with the radar and was one
Yeah.
direction.
On Willard it was. Because it was mostly the concern coming northbound.
Right.
The data on Plattsburg is actually a very complete set of data, other than when we had our ATR stolen and weren't able to collect the data from 2024, but we used what we would consider standard federal highway collection equipment along with the speed feedback signs, which is a higher level tool of first informing. And I do want to put a disclosure, and we got to put it in your presentation. The data from the Beltline is with the speed feedback signs only. It is very challenging to put out equipment on that road and think that it will survive.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. I was just curious about that. And then my second thought is just a potential solution, collaborative solution that I'm hoping to hear from some of my counselor colleagues on this committee, which is, the governor has offered us resources from the Vermont State Police. And I have said this many times, but never in this committee. I think that traffic enforcement support from the Vermont State Police would be a really nice, specific ask for us to request temporarily, because it does not seem that, as others have noted tonight, our local BPD does not have the capacity to do this. And, these issues continue to escalate across the city as, road rage incidents are, on the rise nationwide, really. It's not just a Burlington specific issue. So I'm just wondering if this committee would be open to kind of making a formal request to Chief Burke to, of course, with his blessing and collaboration, to see, what he, if he could put together a memo for us with his thoughts on that as a potential solve, and just kind of get the process going to see if that could be acted upon. So I'm looking for feedback from fellow counselors on your thoughts there, and if we could potentially put together, a motion requesting a memo from the chief, or if perhaps others have, procedurally, I'm not quite sure what the best way to get at that is necessarily. So open to feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. So I had a couple of questions, I guess. One is on the how long would it take for us to get a CCRPC study queued up and completed so that we would have actionable
For the road safety audit.
for the road safety audit?
Right, so applications are due usually like January, February next year, something like that. I don't wanna give you a time.
They don't start until July, because once your funding cycle becomes available, you procure a consultant, or they started as technical staff work. It's likely a June of 27 completion target for their work. And, Philip and I have talked about the road safety audit for the Beltline. This feels like the right fit. It is while we've seen severe and unfortunately a fatality in very recent memory, it is a more stable road, in our opinion, as it relates to how the traffic is behaving out there and kind of what we're getting. Plattsburg Ave, we don't have a recommendation yet. The incidents that are coming in are still happening very frequently. We're still getting different collective information. We'd love to talk to the neighborhood a little bit more about their lived experience. I do travel the road a lot. I have been here since we repaved the road, through its restriping, through the signal improvements at North and Plattsburg to add pedestrian crossings. We've continued to do improvements there, and we want to actually lay that over against kind of the crash experience and see what has helped and maybe what hasn't helped before we come back with what we're doing. But we are doing a lot. We are still paying attention to this. It's just a challenging area.
It's a tricky thing when you're talking about traffic calming. It's not as easy as just let's put some speed humps out there and whoever speed humps that on that Farley, and reaction from some folks in the public is not super positive. So we have to thoughtful.
I understand.
About these things.
I was more asking about timelines because I wouldn't want waiting for a safety audit to preclude us taking other actions. And so I was wondering how those two things might be coordinated, or maybe they're not. And so the other questions I had were about the accidents being clustered around the interchanges. Is one of those interchanges the interchange at the far north end where you have the turn, on the either coming from Colchester or going to Colchester at that the interchange with Plattsburg Avenue?
Yeah, so basically the northbound left turn. So if you're on the Beltline, you're still turning back into Burlington. V-Transit actually identified that as a high crash location about 8 years ago or so, and I sat in a meeting where we tried to figure out, what we would be able to do to make improvement. It was a pretty isolated look and felt a lot like a planning exercise. They went back to their safety group, which they work a lot in isolation, and then we never heard back. But it was already identified as a high crash intersection, and specifically the left turn.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and we were talking about the
Slip lane.
the slip lane as well. I mean, that whole interchange is, I guess, problematic in both directions in different ways. So maybe that's an area that we can take a closer look at. I know that making that left turn, you have people speeding coming sort of southbound on 127 is starting to accelerate, and people that are still accelerating that aren't making the left-hand turn going by. So it can be a little hairy turning on to Plattsburg Avenue there, but I guess I would encourage us to maybe look at that as some of the other, you know, that's the intersection that seems to be problematic, maybe for traffic safety and for Plattsburg Avenue. I guess the other thing I would comment on is, as a frequent user of that road, is it's one of the only places in Burlington where I have seen actual traffic speed enforcement going on, basically on the intersection. I've seen it at least on 4 different times in the last probably 3 months. It's probably not a lot. Officers sometimes it will sit there just if as you're going, I guess, northbound on 127 right by the exit to get off onto North Avenue, the North Avenue beaches.
Yeah, sitting in the median.
And sitting in the median in that little cutout there. So I've seen that. So there is some enforcement going on. And I will also say anecdotally that, you know, for those of us who live out there that have like new drivers in their houses, she doesn't listen to public meetings, so she won't hear me say this, but my spouse won't drive on the Bell Line at night for fear of safety. I think there's a lot of people that'll drive at daytime and won't drive at nighttime. Part of it's lighting, part of it's a lot of the accidents happen at night. So it is regardless of, you know, and that may also drive some of the crash data or lack of, because people will stay away from it because they perceive it to be less safe. But I guess to Councilor McKnight's question about whether or not we make the ask, I had heard in the governor's plan that those resources were not only state police, but also Department of Motor Vehicles, potential enforcement resources. So maybe we just include that and ask of the governor, maybe not as a formal motion, but.
So I mean, I have been talking about traffic support, enforcement support as well. So I think that we should at least ask the administration to talk to us about the possibility and the process, getting the chief's comments about that and what that would take. I think that the governor's plan is really focused downtown. Obviously, this is not, but I don't know why it would not be appropriate to ask. And I would like to sort of compare the stuff that you threw against the wall, that list, and the stuff that the neighbors threw against the wall, see where they line up, and then actually, I mean, I'm hearing the direction is to seek the audit, but they're, you know, trying to think about, is that the plan to go forward? Is that, you know, or are there other steps that can be taken, having seen what's gotten stuck on that wall to take in the interim, because planning processes are planning processes, and I think that what I'm hearing is a need to be doing some steps, and that it meets the threshold to take those steps. So I'd love to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may just, very quickly, encourage you to read through the list of suggestions that the neighborhood folks came up with. Because there's a lot of possibility in here for much shorter term actions that could be applied in several of those areas. So I've sent meeting notes to Rob already. So yeah, please read through the list and
We will do that.
And I mean, just to sort of like put it into an action step, perhaps the thing to do is to seek a report back, at least in writing, for the next meeting, that has staff look at what the neighborhood has asked, look at it and compare with what you are suggesting, we've got the question of the enforcement piece. And seeing if we can incorporate that, maybe it's in the same memo, maybe it's not, maybe it's in, you know, however it works is the way that, you know, should get, so we get some information and, depending on if in that information, there's an actual decision that we have to make and ask you, do you want a recommendation? Do you want us to vote to do something? Then that would be where it would sort of land in the agenda. And I'm not sure that it would take a lot of time, and I know that we've got, you know, other things like around deal that we're going to be dealing with next month. But it seems that that would be pretty simple based on what we're hearing, that to us to make a decision.
It was always staff's attention to continue our work on Plattsburg Ave. We do want to talk to the neighborhood about this, and also our next presentation to neighbors and NPA, or even if there's a more localized neighborhood group, that makes our job a lot easier to get targeted audience. We'll absolutely come back. I think that was always the plan, because we don't have a recommendation on Plattsburg yet. Ready. Would love if you didn't set a specific meeting day. We're coming into the holidays. You guys have busy agendas, and we do as well, and I don't want to rush a neighborhood process. But it will be soon.
It is a traffic calming request. It's in queue. We have data. We'll definitely reach out to Mr. Comstock. And really, then I'll take a look at the list and.
No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna let Dave, because he also lives in that area and was part of the group, but. With respect to the enforcement, though, I know the governor's plan is much more shorter time frame, I think 60 to 90 days, so I wouldn't want us to preclude maybe taking action and asking the administration for potential support for speed enforcement.
That's friendly. If you want to take action on that, we'll follow up.
And then maybe report back to us at our next meeting, where if we have a planned meeting, if we've had a meeting, whatever, and I can, you know, we can work with the neighborhood group to try to figure out when that could be.
Yeah.
And I don't think
I'll be in touch.
Okay. Yeah. And if this comes to fruition and we're able to leverage resources that way, we do have the speed feedback signs that are out there. They would be able to show us a trend depending on what's occurring on the street and what's not occurring in the street if that comes to fruition. We won't have tubes or counter that don't perk in the cold weather. You know, it's helpful that those are there as well.
Go ahead.
Just a couple of things. One, and I am a believer in data before I say this, I won't feel like it's not a data, not a believer, but it's a lot like analytics in baseball, right? Data. And the Yankees, they use analytics, and the Toronto Blue Jays do not. And the Blue Jays are in the World Series and the Yankees are home. And I use that comparison because when we have 3 deaths and nearly 5 deaths, really we get 2 critical on the belt line. Nobody's gonna believe that the belt line is a safe place to travel, right? It's just not, right? And so, although the data might show that, right? But at the end of the day, when you have 3 deaths and 2 near deaths in less than 10 years or around 10 years, there's a problem for sure. When you have cars flying into people's homes on Plattsburg Avenue, right? No matter what the data says, right? There's a problem, right? And it wasn't 1 house, it was 2 houses, right? Nearly 3 houses. And that nobody even brought up the little boy on a little bike that almost was killed right at the intersection, going into Sunset, right? And he was swooped out of the way before any accident really occurred, but it was by the act of God that the kid was killed, right? And so I'm not surprised about the data on Plattsburg Ave, because you know most of the traffic that on Plattsburg Ave is early in the morning and you know school time and after work, and it backs up. So most cars have to slow down, right? Because there's about 15 cars in front of them and there's a red light, right? So I'm not surprised that data shows the average speed to be about 35 miles an hour, because when it's the busiest times, it's the slowest times there for sure, right? And I think it's hard to identify you know, the midnight racers, right, that come off that belt line, that are going 90 miles an hour, right, and it is happening, right? So I appreciate the data, but there's also a reality, and the reality is there's a big problem on the belt line, and there's a big problem on Plattsburg Avenue. So I think.
Thanks, David. Unless the staff want to respond, I'll let Becky get the last word on this.
Can I jump in for public comment after? Sorry, I came in late.
Sure.
It's just on this.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Becca.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Is that Dave Hartnett that just spoke?
It was.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. You made me think of something, which again, about the data. So Philip, another question for you, and if you need more time to get back to this, that's fine. But you talked about the I can't really remember the exact phrase you used, but you know, the 85% of travel is below 35 miles an hour, or something close to that. But can you, like, what is the upper, you know, that top above that, the 15%? Like, can you give us a sense? Because it sounds like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, the speed is an outlier, right? But how extreme is that speed? Because, you know, if you said, okay, the next 15% of travel is 50 miles an hour, that's one thing. But if the next speed of travel is going 65 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour, you know, that kind of gives a sense of the scope of those more extreme outliers. So do we have a way of getting at that?
Yes, we absolutely do, but we don't have the data at our fingers at the moment. I was discussing with Philip, we can add it to the presentation when it gets posted, so it's out there as information. That was the whole point of it. I do also want to highlight, you know, this data that we're getting in is a lot better. You know, we have this motor vehicle complaints, which is a piece of data that we weren't previously getting from the police department. And this relationship is going two ways. We are also sending out the speeds that we are collecting as part of these data efforts so that they are also aware of what the outliers are and the times of day that those are happening. So if they do choose to do some enforcement, they have that information to be as effective as they can. So it's a relationship over the last about 3 months that we've started this, but the data is flowing very well between us. But that information that you asked for will be in our presentation when it gets posted.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah, just Plattsburg Ave. Hi, I'm Nolan. I'm from Ward 3. I just want to say I don't go on Plattsburg Ave too often, but I go on North Ave quite a lot, and I see this is probably outlined in the neighborhood recommendations. But you know, a quick interim project that would be almost zero cost, very easy to do, would just be to block the slip lane. And then you eliminate that and you can just try it out, see how the speeds compare. And then also to Ms. McKnight's point, yeah, maybe a good number would be a 95th percentile speed or a 97th percentile speed. Because if you do have, you know, if you have 1 million cars going through in a month, and you know, 85% of them are near the speed limit, that's great. But if 10% of them are twice the speed limit, then that's a real problem, and that's that's 1,000 cars. So you have some real opportunity for danger there. But especially, you know, concerning the Sunset and Plattsburg Ave portion, if you cut off the easy slip lane and you have to slow down to take the 90-degree corner, then and it's also uphill. You know, you're cutting off a lot of that acceleration. So those are my thoughts there. Really looking forward to see what you can do in the short term for Plattsburg Ave, because you know this study will take a long time. And we can do really easy things in the interim. So thanks, Colin.
Okay. I'm hoping we can go ahead and close this out.
So I think we've got consensus, just to be clear, in terms of the ask for the enforcement and for some sort of communication at our next meeting. Doesn't have to be extensive, and that sort of explains sort of where things are at, and puts it in relationship to the different things that have been thrown against the wall.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just to, sorry, to clarify, Jean, who is taking the lead on talking about the enforcement with the administration? I didn't hear that specifically get assigned to anyone.
I think Director Spence is gonna do that for us.
Okay, thank you.
Happy to do so.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close that item and move on to our second item, which is the 150-foot no parking setbacks on streets without sidewalks.
Yes, again, Will Wilson, Senior Transportation Engineer and Planner, with City of Burlington, Jay, that you want to say before we get, okay, let's just get into it. So what does this mean? Let's discuss kind of the purpose. At this point, we're just informing folks the rationale, safety benefits and implementation considerations of a proposed up to 150-foot no parking setback on streets without sidewalks. So currently in the city of Burlington, at any intersection, we have a 50-foot no parking setback for sightline issues. That is the current standard. But on streets that do not have sidewalks, we would like to be able to consider 150 feet. And where does that number come from? Well, it comes from 25 miles per hour, which is the citywide speed limit. Stopping sight distance at 25 miles per hour is about 150 feet. Stopping sight distance, you see an obstacle, you can react, and then you're able to come to a complete stop. So that includes the perception distance, reaction distance, and then brake distance. So why is this important, and why 150 feet? What is this for pedestrians and cyclists? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Talking about being able to provide a refuge, a space for pedestrians and cyclists, and within that 150-foot zone, and not just pedestrians and bicyclists, but also vehicles to allow for them to have the amount of time and able to be able to stop for pedestrians and bicyclists. Imagine that it's not just in during summer, but also during the winter time. Pedestrians, bicyclists don't really have anywhere that they can go. So who benefits from this? Pedestrians and cyclists. Obviously, drivers will gain time and space to react, and emergency services, they're gonna have clearer access and visibility. So kind of the key messages here, this change protects people walking and biking where there is no sidewalk. When I gave this presentation to the commission, Commissioner O'Neill Blanco said that would be the first thing that we should discuss. This is a safety benefit. The 150-foot rule is one more tool in our safety toolkit. We're not looking to make a sweeping change. Councilor Busher, Sharon Busher had mentioned in her comments that this could be something that we would do everywhere. That's not the case. We would follow our public engagement plan. We're not just going to be removing parking on any and every street that does not have a sidewalk. We would engage with the public. And ultimately this 150-foot no parking setback gives drivers time to see and stop. Once the sidewalk is built on one side of the streets, this isn't needed. So, if we're allowed to proceed with building sidewalks, which is a mandate from the commission, given Public Works a mandate that on any and all streets that do not have a sidewalk, they want us to build sidewalks. So it's kind of the timeline. 2 informational presentations we've already presented at the commission 2 weeks ago. Presenting tonight here at the TEUC. We'll continue to take in public comments and gather some feedback. I don't think we'll be going to the commission in November at this stage. We may. It could be a December presentation, and then after that, more public engagement on streets that would be impacted, map things out, and kind of figure out what's the implementation. And then happy to take questions and have discussion. Topic. Okay, committee.
Do you have a list of the streets right now?
We do have a tentative list. It's not complete at this point. I mean, we're still in kind of the planning phase. I kind of hesitate to put that list. We did present it to the commission.
We shared it with the commission.
Yeah,
I don't see
I have it
it.
at my fingertips right now.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just curious.
Now.
Just, no, I wasn't asking for that purpose,
Yeah, yeah.
but to just say that it would seem to me that the engagement before the adoption with those folks would be important, and I think that for Councilor Busher, that was her big point. I mean, she has a point about removal of parking, but that is, I think part of the equation as you're looking at what to do. So my suggestion is that you front load that to the extent possible. You don't need to have a perfect list before you go out there and do stuff, but that and to the extent to which there are streets in every or in many wards trying to do the engagement in the different wards, right? So it's not concentrated, I think would be very helpful. And it won't get as much blowback, I think, or at least it will be blowback at the beginning that will inform whether you do this. And at the last point, it's up to 150 feet. Right, so there's where that engagement can really inform based on the eyes on the ground in the particular area.
So the up to 150 feet is really going to speak to the data of how fast people are entering these side streets from either a primary arterial, which is really the case that we're most concerned with. If they're entering at a speed of 20 miles an hour, that's the distance.
Right. I mean, I think what I heard Sharon talk about really is sort of exiting from those streets onto other streets.
There's several factors, geometry as well. This is not gonna just be a blanket, don't have a sidewalk on your street.
It's gonna be a
parking and building above.
So all of that, I think, reinforces my thinking in terms of front loading the engagement and doing it in as many wards as is reflective of the circumstances.
Becca, go ahead. I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you. Just a few questions. I mean, first of all, thanks for putting this together. I am generally very supportive of measures like this and cars kind of farther away from intersections. It's a really proven safety method, and I'm glad our awesome DPW staff is pursuing this. I was curious how many car parking spots so I just have I'm going to rattle off a few questions and then I'll ask Phil to weigh in. How many parking spots is 150 feet, just to give a sense of it? It seems like maybe about 8 or 10. I don't know. And then I think it's also helpful to frame this in the context of, like you said, there is, I think you said, a 50-foot setback normally. And so I just think that'll help folks. I agree the public engagement piece of this is really important, and just kind of giving that context that this is already something that is a really universal policy on almost every road in the city. That kind of helps make the case and helps people understand that this is something that we already have, that you don't always notice it if there's not parking right up to the stop sign. It's just sort of the way it is. And then my final question is, just thinking about this, I'm wondering if you know off the top of your head, or we could email about this, Phil, but what is there, I'm thinking about the YMCA, and that's a driveway, it's a commercial driveway, but do we have setback rules for that? I think it's like a foot or two for residential, but just important part of this conversation when people are coming and going and visibility is low. So I'm just was curious as a side note on that. That's all. Thank you.
I'll take the first two and Philip can speak to the YMCA question. So the parking spots, it really depends on if there's parking on one side or both sides. Generally, this is the most problematic for streets that are uncontrolled on either side. So you're looking at parking lots on both sides. So it's 4 spots for each side of the street. 8 total is the maximum that you would generally lose if you're going to the full 150. This number is calculated because there's already a 50-foot no parking here at the corner. And then yes, for the public engagement and how this rolls out, there's some streets that are almost naturally behaving this way. And so they're gonna hear this, they might feel concerned, but at the same point in time, they are not. They've already solved their own safety behavior problem. And then there's other areas where this will feel a little harder because a lot of the on-street parking is happening near the streets. But again, engagement wise, we're not gonna skip our engagement. We are bringing this out as a blanket ability to implement. It ties to something that is going through the ordinance committee right now, where DPW is really lacking the ability to quickly respond to safety concerns. But this doesn't mean that we are implementing all, I don't know the number of streets, it's like 18 streets immediately. We're really focused on the areas where pedestrian safety feels that we need to step in.
Okay.
And then YMCA question there. Setback for the drive, commercial driveway.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's case by case basis, and we can do an analysis on those commercial driveways. As Sharon Busher mentioned earlier, we are an old big city, we're limited on space, so just balancing parking needs with safety, so.
We can bring it up as a request.
Yeah.
We have a lot of requests into increase parking around the Y because of their lack of parking, right? So this will be one that goes against the flow, not that it's not needed. But we'll add it to our traffic.
Okay, and we look at if there's, if there's a safety situation there because crashes are right, there's, yeah.
Near miss experiences.
Okay. Becca, you have other questions? Yes, no.
No, sorry, my mute button is very pesky tonight, but no, I'm good. Thank you.
Still, so I asked. My questions have largely been asked. I really liked Councilor Bergman's recommendation that if there are streets in a particular ward or neighborhood that you engage with the folks locally rather than having one communal meeting. So like if there were streets in Ward 7 or Ward 4, I'm guessing there's a few there. We would engage with them at the NPA before we took any action and try to actually.
Philip and I were discussing earlier getting on that agenda.
Okay, there's been a lot of impacts to the new North End, and I say this because I sat with a constituent for an hour this morning about some of these, and there was another meeting at a table next to me at the Bagel about new North End traffic concerns that I didn't schedule and I wasn't part of. But I'll just say that a lot of changes have happened recently, some for good, to handle some of the safety concerns we've had tonight. Others just because certain changes have been controversial, but we will continue to have those conversations. And I would say to dole these out in a a fashion so that they don't feel like they're getting overwhelmed with change. So I like that idea about the engagement. I did have questions about parking. I would, whoever said, maybe you just said, Laura, that we've had complaints about increasing parking at the Y. This has been my experience. The Y has a lot of classes, especially in the morning. And parking is at a premium. And there's people that I know personally who have scheduled classes, gone to classes, and not been able to take the classes because they couldn't find a parking spot with proximate to the Y time for the class. And I know that some of that's time management, some of that's constrained parking, some of it's downtown construction. So maybe if we were ever going to limit parking, may also do it like based on time of day or something, and not just a blanket change in order to achieve that balance. What's up?
Philip will not be personally handling that for us.
Okay, so those are that's my, is there any other counselors on this item before we move on? Okay, so thank you for that. Look forward to seeing what happens. I guess it goes to the commission next, right?
It was originally, maybe we come back as early as November, and it was pretty clear even just after that first meeting. It'll be December or January by the time this gets back to the commission after some public engagement.
It's a lot of streets that are extended.
Or build some sidewalks.
Or don't send one, there is an alternative.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So our next, we have a presentation from Richard. It says presentation on our agenda, but essentially it's a verbal update, correct? On his e-bike program from this past year and his plans for the coming year. So good, welcome to join us if you'd like.
I can just,
Yeah, come on up.
well, first of all, I want to say it's great to see so much interest in bicycling in the room here. So that's great. But in all ways in Burlington over the 40 years that I've been here. If you haven't seen the PBS documentary that just came out on From Rails to Trails, go and take a look at it. A lot of it was shot here in Burlington. They covered the Island Line Trail, the Causeway, and the bike ferry. It's available at PBS and it's on their app as well. There's a great impression of Howard Dean does a great impression of Bernie Sanders in there that you got to see. So, my wife Ruth and I have operated Burlington Segways since 2013. We added e-bikes to our offerings in 2015 and added smartphone activated e-bikes rented from a bike rack installed at our expense on College Street on the waterfront in 2023. These e-bikes cannot be left helter-skelter anywhere around the city like the bird bikes were. They have to be returned to a geofenced rack to be activated. We pay the Parks Department 10% of our gross income from College Street rack each year. We started with 12 bikes in 2023, added 2 more in 2024. Most of those e-bikes we used on the bike path. Many people take them all the way out to the path. We did well with e-bikes and wanted to expand to racks at North Beach, Oak Ridge Park, Cambrian Rise, and Church Street this year. We entered into a 5-year lease with the Parks Department for racks at North Beach, College Street, and Oak Ridge Park. And we paid for the installation of additional bike racks, which will be left permanently at North Beach and Oak Ridge Park, in addition to the ones that we installed at College Street. We ordered 50 brand new e-bikes this year. The Trump's tariffs of 145% resulted in the Chinese company we had contracted with refusing to ship the e-bikes. So we scrambled and patched together a lease for 22 more of the e-bikes we've been running for the past 2 years, for a total fleet of 36 this year, enough to fill the 5 racks that we had geofenced, and that all worked out very well. Our central location allowed us to swap batteries frequently, keeping most of the bikes at a 98 to 100% charge most of the time. Full charge is necessary for a ride 20 miles out to the Causeway and back in 2 hours. So continually monitoring the e-bikes by GPS and swapping batteries frequently is very important. We had a staff of 6 for the summer who devoted at least part of their time to swapping batteries. We even adapted a kitty cart bike trailer to hold up to 12 batteries to use behind an e-bike along the bike path to service the racks at North Beach and Oak Ridge Park. Through October 10th, our user count for 2025 was 5,178 people, with 5,434 trips completed. The majority of the trips were from the College Street rack and back, but perhaps 15% were from North Beach or College Street, or the reverse, or from Oak Ridge to College Street or Church Street. The trip from North Beach to College Street is about 10 minutes by e-bike. It costs $6 or less, much cheaper than and quicker than an Uber or by driving. In fact, in hot weather, a lot of people like to rent the bikes at College Street, take them out to North Beach, leave them at the rack there, go for a swim, and then take the bikes back to College Street. So it's a very efficient way of moving around the city. And it turns out that the bicycle path has a great utilitarian use, not just for recreation, but also for transportation. We learned a lot this summer by running the 36 bikes out of 5 geofence racks. We think we are ready for a new fleet of 80 to 100 e-bikes for 2025, and an expanded point-to-point bike share system covering most of Burlington. Our goal is to geofence racks throughout the city where people can pick up and drop off our bikes with only a short walk to the destination. Most rides will cost under $7 for repeat bike users. We plan to geofence additional racks at UVM, on the main campus, and at Trinity and Redstone campuses. Fairfield College, Letty Park, the bagel shop in the north end, City Market, Flint Avenue in the south end, and Union Jack on Shepherd Road. We believe this bike share system will allow people to leave their cars at home and get about the city faster and cheaper than travel by car, and you don't need to park. So we believe our experience, our central location, our trained staff will allow us to deliver a first-rate bike share program covering the entire city next summer. Except for a rack in front of our shop at Main Street, I don't think we need any action from the Transportation Committee because the racks we intend to geofence are not located on city property. We will get permission from for geofencing the racks from the proper authorities at each of those locations. I'm saying the except for in front of our bike shop because they just finished the work on Main Street there, and they left a great big green patch out right in front of our shop. It'd be a great place to put a bike rack that could be used by people that use our bikes as well as other bikes. Our primary reason for coming before this committee is to head off any attempt to bring in a venture capital outfit from out of state that would compete with us. And of course, we would like your support for our bike share program and help to convince CAPMA that we are the right people to run an exclusive bike share program in Burlington in 2026. So I'll take any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Rick. Questions?
Where's the rack on Church Street?
And that's at the corner, it's at the crossing Ben and Jerry's, both sides of the street. But we've geofenced existing racks there. We got permission from the Marketplace Commission to do that. That our shop also is a geofence area as well, so people actually drop off the bikes sometimes in our parking lot. But we put a bike rack out in a huge space, which is much wider now on Main Street. That would allow people to drop the bikes there, so it's a little bit further down towards Main Street from Cherry Street.
So, and you're on Pine and Main, right?
Right.
Right, yeah. And in terms of the exclusive contract that you're looking for, or that you're contemplating, you're thinking that you'd enter into an exclusive agreement with us next year?
I don't know that we need an agreement, we do it, but all we're looking for is to make sure that you don't bring somebody else in here, because it's gonna be a $200,000 investment, okay? I can't afford to have some big gorilla company from out of state come in here, plunk down 200 e-bikes with 2 people running them. If they don't take care of them, they're left all over the place. So all we want from you guys is don't bring somebody else in, and don't allow CAPMA to bring somebody else into the city. A bike share system, by the way, can only be run by one company. You can't have competition with that because
It would be a natural monopoly, is that what you're telling me?
That's right. But you know, the point-to-point bike share system does not make money. But we'll be lucky if we break even on that end of it. Where we make the money is people taking the bikes out to the causeway, back, that's 60 to 90 bucks, $7 per ride. It'll take you thousands of rides before you even go close to covering your expenses. Okay, that's the reality of a bike share system in Burlington.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Have you had communications with CAPMA? If so, what have those been like?
We had communications last year when we proposed what we're doing this year. They were supposed to go to UVM and Champlain College and talk to them about allowing us to geofence existing racks up there. They wouldn't do it. They would not do it. They wouldn't go to UVM or Champlain College and recommend that we be allowed to geofence right there. This year, so their excuse was that they wanted to study it, and they didn't just want to go with us, even though there was nobody else here in town to do that. But we've written another letter back to them asking for their support and asking them not to bring in a big outfit from out of state that's gonna put down 200 bikes in the us. So that's why I'm here tonight to tell you, got it under control. We know what we're doing. We live here. We've been doing this for years. Don't bring in some out of state company. It's gonna screw it all up.
Becca, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. I think this is great, and thank you for this presentation. I think one issue that, and I definitely hear you on the making the investment and but needing kind of that confirmation in order to move forward. One thing I do feel like comes up sometimes with this program, not just yours, just overall, is the community having input on either on all kinds of things, like the type of bike, where the locations are, how much it costs, how hard it is to return them. And so I think for any partner, it will be important to be responsive to that input and to be open to kind of adapting and accepting community input when possible. So can you speak to that a little bit, and just what are your mechanisms for taking community input, and how could folks expect that process to go?
Okay. So far, we respond to complaints about the bikes. The bikes that we have this year are not great bikes. They've been used by Gotcha, then the Bird bikes as well. So they're not the greatest bikes in the world. We're looking to bring in all new bikes next year. One of the main problems with these bikes is that when you get the bike back to the rack, you have to go back to the app to end the ride. And if your cell phone is dead when that happens, you're not going to be able to go back and end the ride. So a timer goes on, and after an hour and 20 minutes, it turns the bike off because it's idle. That ends up in $48 more to the rider. So we would like to get a bike which has the ability to recharge cell phones as you come along. That will eliminate a lot of that problem as well. There's a lot of other problems that we've learned about in running these bikes over the last 3 years. And my point to you is that we know Burlington. We run the bikes for 3 years. We know how they operate. We know how to respond to them. So I think we can do a much better job than some out-of-state outfit that comes in here, parks down 200 bikes, and then thinks that they can run the system with only 2 people. That did not work with Bird. So we would be happy to take comments from the public. We would like to make the system the best that we can. We would like to add more geofenced areas if people have suggestions on where those go. Our pricing is competitive with other bike share programs throughout the United States. It's 60 cents a minute. That is between $60 and $90 to take a bike from College Street all the way out to the cut and back. We would be willing to cut the expense of the bike share to 40 cents a minute for repeat users that want to use the bikes in a point-to-point system. So we're willing to reduce the cost for them. I don't believe that a point-to-point system actually turns a profit. I think it's we're going to be lucky if we break even on it. Where the incentive here is to run this kind of system is the longer rides out to the causeway and back, because those are $60 and $90 rides versus a $7 ride between different points in the city. But we're willing to put in the point-to-point system in order to avoid having another out-of-state company come in here and try to run a bike share system here. Remember that there've been 3 different companies that have come in here and each one of them has failed. We're still running. So we're happy to take any comments that you have. We're on the, we have a website. You can get back to us with that, and we'll be more than interested in entertaining any suggestions for making the system better.
You all set, Becca? Let's see, yes.
Yes, I am. Sorry, I have such a lag on this.
No problem. Okay, and I guess I don't, you and I have talked, Rick, and I understand what you're trying to do, so I don't have a lot of questions around what you're doing and what your plans are. I do have, I guess, a question around this relationship with capital, which I didn't understand. Was perhaps, well, so far they haven't endorsed or supported what you're doing, is that?
I just sent them, I sent a note to you about what we were doing, and I sent a note to them about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
But I'll follow up with Katie and Sandy, and we're hoping to get their support this year. I don't see anything unless they come to you and said they're bringing somebody in here. I don't see them moving at all. It's probably not a problem, but we just want to head them off at the pass and hopefully prevent that from coming in here. We do believe that we have a much greater commitment to biking in Burlington, Vermont than anybody else in the world. So we want to do it right, and we're willing to take comments and improve the system the best that we can. We want to come up with a good point-to-point bike share system that actually does allow people to leave their cars at home and travel by bike in appropriate weather during the summer.
Okay, well, thanks for coming and sharing with us tonight. We'll keep track of what you're doing and make sure you're looped in if we hear of anything else on the horizon.
Good. Thanks, Brian. I think we kind of tied things up anyway by getting a 5-year lease on the Rex at College Street, Oak Ridge Park, and North Beach, because that's where the money is in the system. The money from that will allow us to do the rest of it, but without that, you don't have a reliable bike share system in the city of Burlington, in my opinion. It has to rely upon that. So, yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming in and sharing with us.
Okay.
Which brings us to our headliner, we'll call it for the evening. A recycling next steps.
All right, well, thank you, and yeah, for others who have no other business, feel free to head home.
Sure.
Thanks for everybody who's been patient. We appreciated the time that you've given us over many months. We appreciate the time in front of the city council last week. We are truly this Public Works trying to find the best solution for this interim period for the recycling program. And we put together a memo that's in your packet, and we put a budget together as we had promised for what a sustainable city-run recycling program would look like. That's in the packet. And Lee, do you want to give a summary of what we have put forward? Happy to have a discussion.
Sure. So, as you know, with all the challenges we've had in recycling, everything we've done to this point, trying to make this sustainable. Operation by adding TEs, reclassifying positions, hiring bonuses. We still currently have one full-time recycler. We did do another interview yesterday, hoping to reach out tomorrow. And as Jacob mentioned, we were tasked with creating a sustainable municipally run budget, which we did, as we said, is in the packet. Based recommendations for staffing levels off of hours worked. Just to collect recycling annually, it's around 6,200 hours, and to do that efficiently, we need at least 7,250 hours, so that would be by adding one more working foreperson who was actually a driver and working foreperson and a recycling manager, bringing the total FTEs to 6. So that would be 5 drivers and 1 maintenance. That would increase the salaries by about 155,000. We would still have hiring bonuses, referral bonuses, premiums, because of the amount of time that we're going to have fully staff this operation. We're still going to have to subsidize with street maintenance workers to want the recycling. We have added the indirect costs for the city that were never captured in that budget, as well as DPW costs through fleet maintenance, parts, fuel, staff labor, outside labor, outside vehicle contractors, as well as the health benefits, which total about 300,000. We compared the budgets to a fully sustainable budget with solid waste, which includes our 201 Flint Avenue and landfill maintenance added to that cost. The center column is just recycling, would not have those to it. And then the FY26. And we will be posting an RFPQ for a 7-year term for recycling collection. We'll post that November 3rd. Have results due on the 4th. We post it for 2 weeks. Anything you want to say, Chapin?
I think just to continue on that line, we heard from the council a number of important points at last week's meeting. One of them was there was some concern about a 7-year term, and we hear that. What we heard as well was a concern to negotiate with one party around a 7-year term without it being bid out for everyone to have an equal opportunity to submit a price quote. So given our running of the financial numbers, and happy to talk about this tonight, there are pros and cons to each direction. DPW staff and leadership can live with either direction, keeping it in-house or going out. What we do feel strongly about is we need to run each option to ground, because this is a huge resource. This operation requires significant resources, and there are trade-offs with either direction. We feel it is responsible to run both of these fully to ground, give you, the policymakers, the decision on what to do for the next 5 to 7 years. So we mapped out in the memo our plan to get you, we've given you the fully city operations budget. Plan would be to bring back the responses on the 7-year collection contract RFPQ at your November meeting, seeking a recommendation to go one of 2 directions, and hoping to bring that recommendation to the council's December council meeting. We lastly, just on the memo, had a section that fleshed out what was a very quick discussion in our last memo to the full council about why we're recommending not to advance a fully consolidated collection system at this time. And we acknowledge right up front in this memo that long-term consolidated collection makes sense in some way, whether it's public or private. But given the staff bandwidth, given the process required, given the diversity of opinions on the council and the public, and all our other pressing matters, we feel that it is responsible for us to focus our energy on what's already been a long discussion on this next 5 to 7 years, and get a decision on that first and foremost, because that is still hanging out there. And as we discussed today with our union staff, they're really concerned about this coming plowing season, because they've got to fit plowing now in with recycling, and while we're not sure what we're doing with recycling for another 6 to 8 weeks, that limits our ability to fully staff recycling and fully staff street maintenance, because we don't want to be in a situation where we have to let people off if we decide to go a contract route. So we are trying to do the best with the workforce and with you all to give you the most information. Happy to answer questions. Our plan is to come back in November with the two side by side.
Thank you. Open that. Wanna go? There's no, you don't want to go first. Sure, well, of course. Well, thank you for that. I think that just in terms of the budgets to start with, we are going to have the other solid waste costs as part of the factors related to the solid waste generation tax, regardless of this decision. I don't think that it's helpful to be folding it into this conversation, although I know that we have to like sort of like recognize it. So, you know, because it adds a level of complication and it throws more numbers. It's sort of like the you know, the hide the ball game when you start to throw lots of numbers on it. So that's my first comment about that, because once if when we pay for Flynn Ave, and there, you know, maybe there's some other issues that we've got to deal with, then, well, I mean, we're gonna have something else that's gonna deal with that, and we've got to always be dealing with that aspect of it. But really the question that we've got in terms of the cost has to do with a municipal recycling program. And then if we're gonna go consolidated. So I just wanted to sort of make that point so that we sort of don't get that as part of the confusion. I asked prior to the last council meeting for information related to the specifics around the financial improvement, which may or may not have be included in this, and the reduction in injuries. Do you recall that question that I sent you? And we kicked that off of that city council meeting to this meeting. So and into this conversation. It's really important because I think that my conversations with you, my study of this now for, you know, unfortunately for us all the last 4 or 5 years, is that if we look and stand up a program that's comprehensive and protects those financial resources, don't let them get bled out into other areas, that we are going to be doing the public the best that can be done, and we can reduce the, you know, the injuries and all of those barriers to the program as it exists now. So I think it's really, really important that we get the details of that. I think it's also really essential, and you've started to do that, to get a sense of the current status of recruitment and the pay that we're offering in comparison with the private sector. Because what I have heard both tonight from these folks from before and your communications is that this is not recruitment and other issues are not a problem. It's unique to us. These are problems that in fact are relating to the entire economy in all sorts of skilled jobs. So really understanding that, and I think that part of the consideration that I would like, and that I think the public deserves, is really a comparison of the pay and benefits and the values that go to being part of the public sector and those that are part of the private sector. And I just want to say that I can make my bills right now because of the pension that I got as a municipal employee who worked 20 years for this city. And with Social Security, it makes a huge bit of difference, a defined benefit program that does not exist out there in the private sector. And I forewent, I think that's the word, the possibility of getting better pay in the private sector, but you know, the trade-offs plus public service and the values and all the camaraderie that I had working with you all was really, really important. So laying that stuff out, I think, is a part of our considerations that we have to deal with. The CDL issue. What I heard tonight, and I appreciate it because it's sort of what I was thinking, is that it's not just a problem for us. It's a problem, you know, that relates to the requirements of driving these trucks, regardless of who is there. So there was a link to a study from a few years ago. Maybe it was in even your materials that spoke of some ideas for how to overcome the CDL issue. But that is something that I would like to be able to understand that issue much more thoroughly, and the ways to overcome it if it's a barrier. And you know, I mean, it's akin in a way to the problems that we've got around the weatherization program and the lack of folks and skilled trades to do the work that we have required that needs to be done for climate or affordability. And so us being clear about what we can and cannot do and what systemic things might need to be done is something that I would like to hear. I'm just gonna lay out two more questions and then I'll give you my feedback on it. It's important, and I don't quite see it in any of the memos, to understand what the capital needs of the city recycling program are going to be in the next few years. You know, we've got trucks. Do they need to be replaced? Do we have a leg up? You know, clearly what Casella has said both tonight and also in the prior is that they need to invest in new trucks if they're going to be doing that. I don't know, you know, so we need to understand what our capital needs are. And hopefully the city will be changing its bonding authority in the next 8 to 10 months with the passage of a charter change. And that will give us much greater authority and therefore access to capital if we need to have to buy, we need to borrow to lease more trucks. So I really do want to get an understanding of that. And the last question is what your memo asked for another 6 months, if I read it right today, in terms of bringing, you know, working on consolidated solid waste. Did I read that incorrectly? I thought I read, that's what I.
Seeking a decision on the next 5 to 7 years in hopefully at the November meeting to bring to the December council. But the council had asked a resolution to put together a plan for what a transition to consolidated collection would be. It is likely that, yes, we would like 6 months to develop that plan. It was likely our staff recommendation that we would say we would prefer not to embark on that plan at this time. But we understand council's direction to have this information, and we are happy to provide it.
So I just wanted to make sure I was right on sort of the framework. And so what I need to understand is sort of what's the plan for the development of the plan if you've got another 6 months.
Yeah.
I don't want to kick the can down the road and think, okay, now we're in the same place that we were there. So I need to understand the thinking of that. Let me say that I believe I've said this publicly for 5 years. This is a natural monopoly that is of a public good that is best done by the public sector when it can do that, and the city, I believe, can't do that. So with all due respect, people, behind me in the private sector are feeling a need in a state that is not set up like Burlington. So I appreciate it's not a diss, guys. But I do, I really do believe that, and so there are a lot of points related to democracy that undergird that, because this is, like I said, a public good. I'm sympathetic of the financial concerns. I'm in favor of it being a consolidated solid waste system, and I'm particularly understanding of the capital crunch that the city has, in large part due to the bonding for the high school. But that is going to change, and I think this is going to change with a vote as well. That's going to improve our bonding capacity, and so I'm very much not interested in doing anything that is going to foreclose that, because I do believe that we can make decisions that in essence will make that an impossibility to do a consolidated system. And I can't support that. I can support sort of getting information about what people would charge us. I actually am very skeptical about the information, because once if you know that it's gonna be less likely for a competitor, in this case the city, to do something, then the idea of lowballing is something which is not outrageous, and you got a 250-year history of this country and centuries of capitalism to show that that is not just a fantasy on my part. So I'm not opposed actually to letting out, and this is where it might be distinct from some of my colleagues on it, in terms of to understand what a Casella bid and anybody else would bid for 7 years. But I'm really skeptical of the numbers that are going to come back. At least there is a lot of salt in my tasting of that, depending, just because this is an entry price, and they've got to be thinking about that. That's just what good business people are going to do, and they're good business people. So even if it's low, and it's been proven, I think, that the municipal system, when set up, is effective. So, or it is at least on a cost basis. Let me just end by saying, I think that in terms of the memo, you're overselling the benefits of privatization in terms of the loss of work. No matter what, I am not hearing, and God, there'd be a firestorm if you just said, "I'll forget it." We're not gonna regulate it. It's not gonna be a city system. So, and I don't know how that's factoring into the RFP, but once you're committed to having the oversight for it being, a contracted out city service, then you still got to spend all the resources. You got to spend the resources to manage that, to oversee that, to enforce on that. So, you know, the thought that you're just, you know, setting it and forgetting it. I was your attorney for a long time and remember the days when we didn't collect solid waste taxes and we had to, you know, figure out the ways to get those, be effective on that. Those were real resources that we had to do. So I'm not hearing a recognition, maybe it's all part of that. I'm not hearing a recognition of those costs, which are part of the analysis. I also think that there is great value, and you might be in the memo alluding to the great value of spreading the costs for the maintenance and keeping that in-house. So you're actually paying for, you're getting paid for maintenance that you're doing on the trucks and what have you, which on one hand is a burden, on the other hand, it's cost savings, and it's keeping the money in-house that you wouldn't have to be outsourcing, or you wouldn't be paying for that extra, whatever it is, outside. So that analysis, as I'm reading it, I'm highly skeptical of him. If that gives you my sense, the sense of where I'm at. Thanks.
Becca or Mary? Who wants to go first?
I don't need to go first. But I guess I can.
Becca?
Go ahead, Merrick. I don't have anything to add just yet.
Okay.
All right, thank you for this. Councilor Bergman brought up a lot of my points, and I've also brought them up myself over the past couple of months. My stance has always been clear that when we are talking about not just the future of our recycling program, but the future of solid waste collection and disposal in Burlington, that my North Star for this city has always been a fully consolidated municipal collection disposal system. So that for me has always had me against the privatization of this system for any length of time, but especially for 7 years. It's a long time. And I think the concerns from the community and from the concerns that you've heard on this council about these long-term deals, making that likelihood of us taking our services back, whether it's just recycling or a consolidated system in general, feasibly more difficult. We're giving it away, and then it's way harder to get it back than to just upgrade what we'll already have in 5 to 7 years. I do believe that we should give the plan for consolidated collection, even just the plan. I think I would agree that we should have more time to work on that. Because I do think that this is a long journey to get to that point, both in terms of our current financial state and everything that you guys are already working on, even just in this place. I completely agree with Jack Tiano that you do a lot with very little, and I will always be an advocate that you should get more to do with it, what you do. But to that end, to that North Star that I personally have for this city, I don't even think that we should be putting 7 years out to bid at all, because as Councilor Bergman alluded to, my concern would be that we would be getting a lowball offer for that 7 years, and then we'll take it, because for those 7 years it may be cheaper, but then once we're at the point where those 7 years are up and we need to make the decision on what's the future of this, and then we choose to privatize again. Well, now they've got us. Now they've got the residents of Burlington, and they can increase the prices as they will, especially if we want to eventually pursue regulation to ensure that there's only one company driving trucks through our city. That's all very far off in the future talk. But for me, I think it's important that we keep the future in mind, both in the sense that if we give recycling away, we'll be able to get it back in 7 years. Will the will be there to do that? And then also with just putting this bid out, can we trust that an offer that might potentially be cheaper in the short term for the city is going to be cheaper for residents if we end up deciding to fully privatize based off of what we choose with recycling. So I am against this, but I am for giving the city more time to look at our long-term planning. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Can I add one? I'm sorry, I went a long time, but in terms of flow control, I think that it's a real issue, and I'm sympathetic to the concerns. I hear reasons why people are choosing to go with a private hauler for recycling even right now, and I think that's a separate conversation to have, and would be great to have both a greater elaboration of the facts, what's happening out there, and then what are the alternatives that we should consider in terms of regulatory changes, if any, that we need to do. So I think that that's intrinsic in the budgeting as well, and you talked about that and its importance and the fear of it growing as a leakage in terms of finances. So I just want to not lose sight, and I hadn't mentioned that.
That flow can really mean people opting out.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right. So
yeah,
I think that is that's important.
Becca, do you want to weigh in?
No, I'm good. My thoughts are very much in line with Councilor Bergman and Councilor Broderick's. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I concur on the point of getting more information and allowing more time for a consolidated model. But I still remain, as I said in the council meeting, remain concerned about consolidated collection being sort of a foregone conclusion, or something that we we assume is better. I was part of the discussion when we had it 4 years ago, and there were a lot of sort of nuanced issues with consolidated collection. One is the opting out. We had 15%, I think, at the time. And I don't know if that number's gone up, but I know anecdotally of more people opting out and self-hauling than were then, just because, costs have increased. And the other thing I'd say is, like, the city, I understand the public good, but the city does have some oversight already. They can, through licensing for haulers, and they can impose some regulatory constraints on haulers already. So without owning the system and having our own collection enterprise, we can still assert some structure over this thing. If it was a privately system that's franchised with the city, like we had envisioned being one of the possibilities with consolidated collection when we took it up back in 21 or 22. That's problematic. When I talked to the haulers then, and I talked to, I think, 6 different haulers at the time, some of them would bid on the New North End, where it's easy picking, no pun intended, but the downtown is a lot more difficult. And it's easier there and harder there. And if you were going to break the city into zones, the question became, would the zones be differentially priced, or would they all be the same? Would it cost more to pick up on Green Street than it does on Holly Lane, where I live? And
sure,
and it should. I mean, if you're talking about the all-in costs, or if you're going to sort of spread that burden around. So there's those problems. The other thing I would say is a firm like Casella, this is their core competency. This is what they do. The city, might take a crack at it, but that's not, that's not like our core competency. We had an enterprise that we stood up that was, just like we have with electric and wastewater. Eventually we'd get really good at it, but out of the gate, I don't know. Maybe we would. And so I have questions about, the modeling that's been done around, is it cost effective, more cost effective, equally cost effective? I don't know. I'm skeptical, I think, about the public the estimates around the public cost as I am, as Councilor Bergman is around the private sector sort of undercutting. Not because we're being dishonest with ourselves, it's because we don't know what we don't know. We can build these models, but like someone brought up, if this is now an enterprise of the city and these are AFSCME employees, then we have a retirement obligation. Is the retirement obligation cooked into all of this? And so I think there's a lot we don't know, but we do know that, I don't get complaints about trash collection. This isn't something that I get complaints about very often. So insofar as it's a burning issue to be solved, if the constituents are complaining about it, they're complaining about the cost component. So the strongest argument for consolidated system, I would say, would be, are we saving the taxpayers and residents money? Can we guarantee that we're saving the money with a consolidated collection system? And if the answer is yes, then I say that's a stronger argument than, some of the others that I've heard postulated about why we need a consolidated collection system. I have 4 or 5 different delivery systems with big giant trucks. You have UPS and FedEx and then ground and USPS, and then private, and they're all rumbling through my neighborhood as much as, maybe more so and more frequently than the trash haulers are, which come through on Mondays and Tuesdays in my neighborhood. And then recycling comes through on Friday. It's not an imposition to me. I'm skeptical of the cost, sort of the carbon costs that have been sort of baked into some of the arguments on this as well. So I'm not sold on consolidated collection as something that's better and is like, it's cheaper or better. But I'm open to hearing more about it. And I think the more information we have, the better. So the longer we take on a consolidated collection to make sure we're answering the questions as fully as possible, I think it's worthwhile. But we still have this issue now where we have the street crew who's got this drudgery task of having to participate in a recycling program, and we've heard from the union that this is a sore spot for them. It creates burnout. We've lost employees over it, if that's accurate still, and we still only have one, even though we've one full-time person, even though we've had recruitment bonuses and everything else. And we have like one recycling truck that works right now, and
we have 2 out of 4.
2 out of 4. And we know that the lead times for a new recycling truck are like what, 2 years, 3 years, 2 years. And so we have this issue that we got to solve now. And so I would like to decouple these two decisions, and knowing that, to make the numbers work, we have at least one private hauler telling us that they need 7 years to depreciate the equipment and recoup the investments that they need to make. That seems reasonable to me. I don't think, and there's probably one other, I can think of one other hauler maybe in the area that would want to participate in this. It's not a big universe of companies that can do this. So to say that one company is going to have an advantage if we enter into a contract with them, I think it's not like, it's already sort of almost a monopoly in some ways. And then where all the waste goes certainly is a monopoly. So it's not that far from where we are already, except that the city doesn't have the obligation of trying to manage and do the pickup, and then DPW doesn't have the opportunity cost of working on standing up a new city enterprise rather than some of the, solving some of the other problems and doing some of the other work that we've heard is important to city residents. So I think we have to weigh that. The one thing that is new that I saw tonight that I hadn't considered in the memo is the fact that, like, I know we have in our maintenance department does work on all city fleets. So having a city-run consolidated collection system might spread. You'd be able to use that maintenance staff and sort of multiplex them over, multiple city departments and recoup costs better that way rather than that. But if it's a standalone city enterprise again, that just like we sort of firewall off deep wastewater and BED, we probably have to do something similar to that. It would probably be its own standalone enterprise that was, have accountability to the city, but have its own own book of their own books and its own sort of regulatory requirements. So I don't know, I'm not convinced. I'm still not convinced about consolidated collection, but I think it's worth chasing this down more and understanding more about what that model. So I'm supportive of the additional time. I would like us to, as a council, to make a decision after we put a new RFP out. I'm supportive of putting an RFP out for 7 years and see if you get any more bids. And then we have that information as well to sort of add in. But I think we need to address this recycling. We've been talking about it for at least a year, and we haven't made a lot of headway.
The employees, they're in tune with all the conversations. They watch the meetings and it's a concern of theirs, especially, and it's a concern of mine, especially going being short-staffed in streets right now and in recycling, and then taking 2 streets employees every day and send them recycling. When we get snow, there's 1 or 2 things that are gonna happen. Either the streets aren't gonna get plowed, or the recycling not to get picked up, and it's not gonna be the first one. Because we need to plow our streets and sidewalks. So that is priority 1. So whether we plow and then, send 1 truck out to collect on a route, and then maybe go out later in the day after we're done plowing, or the next day, or the next week. It's an internal discussion that we're figuring out right now. The winter is approaching fast.
Those are all fair.
So what do you have what you need from us? We're just three of us and giving you some feedback.
This has been helpful. I mean, fundamentally, what we came to you was not with a decision, but with a status update. It was helpful to get reminded of some of Councilor Bergman's questions that we heard at the council. We do have some answers to some of the questions now, but given the time, my suggestion is we've typed up the questions. We'll get a response in written fashion and we'll go ahead that way.
I had one question that I had made note of during public comment, which I think was maybe misinterpretation of something that was said. If we went to a private hauler for recycling, it's not the case that we would have to replace all the toters, is it?
No.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, because that was said and I didn't think that was accurate.
And trucks in the RFPQ, we offered that whoever won the contract, should we let a contract, would have the first right to purchase the trucks, the 2 trucks that we have that have value at their appraised value.
One thing, I don't want to negotiate in public meeting, but
Yeah.
One thing to consider perhaps is that you go the other way on it too. So to don't close the door on consolidated collection, be able to purchase any trucks that were going into this process from a private hauler should be at the end of 7 years.
Unlike the vintage vet you've got in your garage, that putting this in the garage is not really gonna be under a tarp is not gonna be a great idea. But it does speak to, I think to the question I asked in terms of the capital needs and projecting out those so that we're just really clear about that. And we haven't had that sort of lineup.
That's one of your easier questions, so we'll have that to you, no problem.
I love your easy. Great.
Okay, so Becca, this is your last chance to weigh in.
I'm good for now. This is
Okay, good for
helpful.
now. Okay, if there's more comments, we can direct them, or more questions that come up, we'll direct them over that. Okay, otherwise we'll look to hear back from you, how and when.
So the key element at the end of this meeting is when you all want to meet in November, given Thanksgiving. We're not expecting the RFPQ back until the 14th. So we're gonna need you to meet hopefully sometime between the 14th and the.
We have like two sort of bigger items. We have Valerity report and the Encore stuff back,
right?
Which would be D related.
That's right.
So that's a good question. I guess maybe it's something I'll pose to the committee is whether or not we do want to meet twice.
These are important stuff, things I'm willing to do that.
So potentially come back to us in November after the 14th.
Yes, we would like to try to get a decision from us all so that we can figure out our winter maintenance and our staffing and have a clear direction.
Can I just get you to correct the decision that we made in terms of all these timelines was in May, it was not in July. And you keep now, you put that in, you know, a few times that it was the July 14th instead of the May 19th. This is just making me crazy. It's sort of like an itch. I can't stop scratching.
Yeah, thank you for correcting us. We'll double check the correct date.
Thanks. If I'm wrong,
yeah,
I'd be happy to get forward to that.
Yeah,
I do have the resolution now.
So great.
May 19th.
All right. Thank you for correcting us.
That's quite right. It's just more like my itch. It's get some medicine.
So if there's nothing else on this right now, we can talk about meetings, I guess, at the end. We'll talk about our tentative next meeting. And we can handle additional meeting. Okay, good. So that will close our deliberative agenda. We'll now turn to the director's report.
In your packet is just information on our first ever fall clean sweep. We've started communication with the public. Want to thank Lee's team amidst supporting recycling and getting ready for the plow season to offer this new service. This is a billable service. Water Resources is supporting this financially in order to keep phosphorus out of Lake Champlain. And we need your help in explaining the value of this to the public. We've had some people asking questions. Why are we doing it in the fall? Why are we doing it with leaf pickup and also clean sweep? And leaf pickup is for private property. We're reminding folks not to rake their private property leaves into the public right of way. We have enough to do in the public right of way ourselves. The sweepers fill up very quickly, picking up all the leaves. So public should rake up their leaves from their property and put them in bags for leaf pickup. Clean sweep will clean the public right of way.
Will leaves because I did get this question today. Could clean sweep's going to run throughout the leaf pickup too?
Or start the Wednesday prior. So Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday through leaf week. Leaf week will start on the 10th, run through the entire week. So there'll be a little overlap with the clean sweep pickup. I mean, even leaf pickup every year is a hit or miss on the date. Sometimes you get people, you need to go later, you need to go earlier. We all know the oaks fall off the trees later in the season, but that's close to plow season. Same with sweeping. I mean, we're getting into frost as it is now, and going out the sweepers that utilize water to lubricate fans.
Well, I guess we'll find out if the sequencing works or not, we can adjust.
May not be perfect, it's our first fall clean sweep, so.
Becca, you had a question?
Yeah, I think this is a great program and definitely very supportive of anything we can do to get rid of phosphorus in the lake. And thank you to the water department for that. I just wanted to make a little public service plug of my own to remind the public, in addition to not raking leaves into the public right of way, which is absolutely, thank you for that, PSA Director Spencer. You can just leave your leaves in your yard. You do not have to rake up your leaves. You can leave your leaves. Anyone can do this. It's great for pollinators. It serves as a natural fertilizer and it saves you work and it's healthy for planet Earth. So leave the leaves. Try it out. That's all.
Thanks, Becca.
Do we have front porch forum announcements that we're gonna be doing that make it clear, like what you were saying?
Yeah, we can walk you through everything we've done, but to specifically answer that question, first front porch forum did go out last night. The next one's gonna go out on Monday in advance of New North End being the first date, and then we'll have another one after that. We'll also be, we'll be using a variety of means, happy to walk through that, but.
I just want to make sure that, I mean, this is an opportunity to talk to the people.
That's what happened. We got in 2 months and.
Yeah, no, I mean, the leaves in the street are there and to be able to get them before they go in the storm drain, yeah, it's a really.
We've been going out
for a no-brainer.
Prior to clean sweep, just because we know how heavy the leaves are, you know, like Lakewood Estates. You know, certain areas that are just heavier than others that fill up a sweeper in 30 feet, you know, because you can't compact the leaves.
Yeah.
There, so. We've added another truck to clean sweep because, for that reason. Because one of the rental sweepers that we get from a contractor fills up pretty quick. Sure. That's such a good job, so. Interesting.
Anything more on the director's report?
No, given the time, that's plenty.
From councilor items, anybody got councilor items?
The only thing is, what we're gonna be doing, it's a question in terms of the North Avenue and the Colchester bike lane issues. I think that they were significant. They want to get out here. I don't know if that is a director's report next month. In some fashion,
Yes, we can add that to a director's report update next month.
and if there's any way that in the time in between that there can be some engagement with those folks that have raised the issue too.
I think the one point councils are good.
Yeah.
They're having a meeting, I think they said next week. I had a question about that too. A constituent of mine was asking me about whether or not there was, I guess, and it wasn't it's not Plan B TV New North End. And it's not Plan B TV, I don't think either, but maybe it's the walk bike master plan, but there was a recommendation run a protected bike lane on North Avenue. I don't know if that can be at least not resurrected, but reviewed again.
Right, and that is getting reviewed through the North End plan to see if that recommendation still should exist or whether we consider a separated facility on one side of the road, right, as opposed to bike lanes in the road.
Right, and the separated facility would be to take a two ways on the west side of North Avenue.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to at least explore that because it keeps on coming up and it would deconflict some of the other conversation, even though it's probably the most expensive solution. So good, fast, cheap, pick any two. Yeah. Okay, and then lastly, if there's no other councilor items, we need to decide on our meeting or meetings for November. Tentatively, we have 11/25, which is that our fourth?
Yes.
Tuesday, and when is Thanksgiving?
27th.
27th. So I don't know how people feel about meeting that week. I am totally fine with meeting on the 25th.
I am as well.
Yeah, I'll be in Massachusetts, but I.
Okay, and Becca, how do you feel?
I cannot meet then. I'm sorry.
Okay. Close.
Sorry.
3.
Tough week for moms. I
Yeah,
got a lot of duties this Thanksgiving week.
totally get it. I mean, how do people feel about?
But I'll just say, really, the only other that's a tough few weeks for me because we have a council meeting the week before, and then I have REIB on the 18th. I can meet on the evening of the 20th. That's my only availability the week of the 17th. So,
I have
or others.
Public safety conflict. Public safety.
Okay.
What time? 5:30.
My ordinance committee goes from 4:30 till. We have an ordinance committee meeting on the 20th.
So I'm already.
You're double booked.
What time is it? What time does that end?
Well, we can end it at no later than, they do it at 6. When is your,
I think it's at 5:30.
At 5:30?
I
don't know that we.
So the 20th doesn't sound like a good.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
What, 3 meetings in a row?
Well,
We're gonna have 3 meetings in a row.
Possible.
maybe you should just go ahead with the 25th if it works for staff, which is an if, since it's a big holiday travel week. I don't have a problem if you 3 want to go ahead, and maybe I'll if there's a chance I could hop in for a bit that day, but I'm not. I think I won't be able to.
Why don't we tentatively plan to book the 25th? And I know we have at least 2 items that one of which we were gonna have this month and we put off to next month, and that's the validity report.
Yeah.
That I think we definitely wanna do. We're also gonna try to get the Encore update from CETA, which I haven't done the outreach on yet. Maybe I'll talk to Rob about that, but we want that as well. And so that's sort of the PED stuff, and I don't know if we could do those things and do more recycling. It seems like a meaty agenda. It seems like we almost need a second meeting.
I would agree with that, unfortunately, but and just I have the 19th the week before.
I could do that as well the week before on the 19th. But I don't know, Becca, you said the 20th was the only day you could meet that week?
Yeah, that is correct. Sorry.
Okay, well, we can't back it up an earlier week.
I mean, I can meet earlier in the day on the 20th.
I could do that too.
I can't. Sorry.
You cannot?
I cannot on the 20th. I can only do the evening.
Okay.
I mean, we could have a short ordinance committee. I mean,
We have one on the second.
yes, we're meeting twice a month, right, as a rule.
Okay.
So we could do a short one, but that would then, but I don't know how you get.
Well, you and I can talk separately, but
Yeah.
maybe we could, if we can't meet to that, then we could push ordinance back a little bit if Sarah and Joe were amenable.
Yeah, I think that.
Okay. So we have one meeting on the 25th.
What time did you want that tentatively scheduled for?
If we
5:30?
5.
if Becca, we were meeting a little bit later. For Becca and for Merrick, I think. But you'll be home, so maybe you could meet a little earlier.
Yeah. It's a holiday week. I'd love to consider like a 4:30 or something, so it doesn't.
I am friendly to that.
I'm okay with that.
Maybe as early as.
Yeah.
4 o'clock?
Yeah.
Sure, that'll work.
Yeah. So 4 o'clock, if we can get this room on the 25th.
This room is currently occupied until 4:30, but we can check with the DAB to see if that's gonna go forward and if they expect to use the full time.
Okay.
And then 4 or 4:30.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
And
And
then,
you're getting the recycling done up like by the 14th, is that what's your deadline?
We're hoping to, yes, have a RFPQ out on the 3rd, so 2 weeks gets us to the 14th.
So, yeah, so a meeting on the 12th or something, or the, even, yeah.
what about the first week of December?
Yeah.
Would that work for you still?
It works for me.
Does it meet your needs?
Yeah, there's 2 December meetings, I believe, for the council, is that correct? The first one's the 1st and I think the 15th.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, as long as we meet far enough in advance that we can prepare a packet for the 15th.
Do you wanna try the first, how are you the first week of December, Becca?
Good.
Oh, you know what, I'm gone that week. I forgot I'm gonna be out of, I'm gonna be way gone.
Heading into the holidays.
Oh, no, I'm gonna be 5 hours ahead again.
Ouch.
Yeah.
The week after, you're gonna be
Is that
there.
enough time to think that?
It's not gonna be good time to do something for December 15th, right?
So back to the
Unless-
20th, and
Unless we met on the 8th.
What, 8th of December? That's when I get back. I'm gone.
I know that we have not even thought about Fridays. But Friday, the 21st.
Of December?
Of November.
Of
Oh,
November.
that's right, I'm thinking you're not gonna get anything back, but Friday, the 5th of December. I mean, I've got some issues.
What if we went early, because you're getting something back on the 14th, if we use the 25th for recycling, we tried to do something different for the BD.
Right.
So then we could go,
But do they need to get the recycling back?
But I think what Mark's saying, we deal with the recycling on the 25th and use the Valerity, meet earlier on the Valerity report.
potentially. I would have to check with Darren on.
Yeah.
But
So you're gonna get information back on what are we gonna get on the 25th of?
That would be the 2nd meeting where we review the recycling numbers that came in on the 14th.
The 14th of November. I'm like totally off in terms of my months. This is great. I love this. This is better. I'm good. I'm good with
Okay, so we have a meeting on the 25th. I hate to have Becca missing 2 meetings. Maybe we, and plus I need to talk with Darren, Larry, whether or not the representations have been made about the 25th to them. But one idea would be to have like Valerity and recycling and maybe do it on the 25th. We can do it encore in December.
I think that would work.
Okay. Maybe we just do the 25th and I'll see about the rest of it and I'll do some agenda planning with Gene and Darren.
Yep.
Okay.
Bravo.
Done for now.
Great.
4:30 on the 25th. Okay. Excellent.
Okay, so we just only chose one meeting time.
Only
Is that
one
right?
meeting on the 25th. And
Okay.
You can dip in if you want.
And yeah, actually earlier is a quieter time for me.
Okay.
So I'll do my
Very good.
best.
Okay. Good. Teamwork.
It's the hardest part of our job.
And without objection and with no further business, I will adjourn us at 8:25.